With Web Designer 7, we made some breaking changes. I think one of the main known changes is that we are using now extensions instead of module and component copies. With 7.1, the number of changes are not that much, but in Web Designer, they implemented a lot of usability improvements in a way of that some new features are now better to use. In addition to that, all out of the breaking change resulting bugs and glitches was removed so that you get now a more stable and much better to use Web Designer than we have ever had.
We did some usability improvements in the Web Designer, and I'm going to demonstrate some of them. First of all, the node editor has been enhanced. As you can see here below, we added grouping, filtering, and sorting of the properties. So currently my view in the node editor here is group. I can collapse every grouping and expand some of them, or I can expand all of them. When I'm clicking on sorting on the columns, when grouping is enabled, the columns are sorted inside of the groups. And when I would turn off the grouping, see here, sorting would affect every property of that node. I'm able to search here, of course, control. So just displaying parts of the setting that contains control. And that allows you to find the properties or large node types very easily. Another enhancement is that we added the capability to show and edit the extensions you're gonna make for out-of-the-box components or modules directly in the object tree. Here in my example, I've extended the white pages. So first of all, I do have here an extension on that property, and you can see here I've added a new container node and a new label, and I'm able to see that here directly in my original module. And I'm also able to add another one directly here inside of the object tree of the original module, so I don't have to switch back and forth between the extension and the original object. So let's say I'm adding another label here. So I can directly add this here in the original object and edit the values here. So in addition to that, we have some responsive design things that added to the node editor. For example, when I'm adding more columns here to the text, or if it's code, then you can see that the box will be sizing automatically at least 2, 3, or 4 lines. So just for small things, you don't have to use the pop-up window with the full-featured text editor just for adding 1 or 2 lines here. And coming back to the extensions here, when you can see here, this node I told you before, I have extended that. And there is a new option here, show extension value. So when I'm turning that off, I'm seeing the original value, which is just heading on the white pages here. And I'm clicking here, showing the extension value. I'm going to see what is the property value from my extension, and I can change this directly here in my original object. So again, I don't have to switch back and forth between the extension and the original object. Another thing is that you do have more control over the load flags of collections and objects. So I'm going to show you that. There's the database access options node here, and you do have that on the load collection, on the grid, and on the trees. And as you can see here, you have all the options you already know from the enhanced object layer from version 7. You have here accessible now in the Web Designer. So you can choose if you want to load the foreign key displays for all display columns, or if you want to have interactive entities. Of course, we are talking here about the white pages. So one performance optimization is don't create interactive entities here inside of the white pages, because we don't want to edit the data. So you have more control over your pages when you create new custom pages, so that you can control the load behavior of the Web Designer in more detail than before. Another minor addition is that you have direct access to your source control extensions in the Explorer if you have chosen to use file-based solution, as I did here in my example. When you click on a node that is part of a file here, my extended file, CCC, my data white pages, and you click here on the folder icon, right click, you do have access directly to your Explorer extensions, and just assume that you do have here your SVN or your Git integration present from your Explorer. You can directly save the XML into your source code repository.
Excellent, Marcus. Thank you. And one thing missing on the slide, and this is the Vcf connection for debugging. It can now use manual credentials. Please remember, in the past, directly on the start page of the Web Designer, there was always the connection to the web projects and the web sub-projects. And often that connection failed, especially because it was a secured server with an SSL certificate missing, and it was not really possible to get it, especially on a workstation that was not a member of a domain. And with the new version, it is now possible to configure the credentials you would like to use to connect to a web project. That will solve that problem now finally, especially because then Web Designer will pass through these credentials and let you get access in situations where it was not possible before.